I recently read Mastery by George Leonard. Mastery is the mysterious process through which something that seems initially difficult or even impossible, like public speaking, writing code, or serving a tennis ball, becomes easy and pleasurable through diligent, patient, long-term practice. The key word is patient, because the path to mastery involves long plateaus of work with little signs of progress. Then suddenly, something clicks, and what took effort to perform becomes automatic and effortless. The key to truly mastering something, whether it's a sport, art, hobby, or profession, is to embrace those long plateaus between spurts of progress and resist taking the path of the dabbler, the obsessive, or the hacker. The dabbler starts a new hobby, sport, or job with enthusiasm, but quickly loses interest when they experience a plateau. The dabbler views the plateau as a sign that they should start looking for the next thing. Carl Jung referred to the dabbler as the eternal child. The obsessive dislikes a plateau just as much as the dabbler, but instead of losing interest, they redouble their effort and exhaust themselves before finally giving up. This is the executive who works 100-hour work weeks until they hate their job and burn out. When the hacker reaches a plateau, they're content. The hacker is like someone who mines for gold and then stops the instant they find a single gold nugget, whereas the master continues digging and collects several gold nuggets. A great way to illustrate the difference between the dabbler, the obsessive, and the hacker is through the prism of a romantic relationship. The dabbler is quick to fall in love and quick to end a relationship when the honeymoon phase ends. They're afraid of commitment and like to keep their options open. The obsessive is quick to fall in love, but refuses to let the honeymoon phase end, so they keep buying extravagant gifts and going on increasingly exotic getaways. But Leonard says, the relationship becomes a roller coaster ride, with stormy separations and passionate reconciliations. The inevitable breakup involves a great deal of pain for both parties, with very little in the way of learning or self-development to show for it. The hacker does just enough to win someone over to get married. Then they coast. Several years later, the hacker is shocked when their spouse tells them they want a divorce. But someone who stays on the path to mastery is not deterred when the honeymoon phase ends, and they continue working on the relationship during long periods when nothing exciting happens. By doing so, they wake up each day with a deep sense of love and appreciation for their partner. If you can stay married to a craft, a sport, an instrument, or profession during prolonged plateaus, you will discover a deep love that will bring you joy every day. The key to making it through long plateaus is knowing you're on the path to mastery. You'll know you're on the path to mastery if you consistently answer yes to the following questions at the end of each week. Am I surrendering to instruction? Am I practicing intentionally? Do I love to practice? And am I exploring the edge? These 4 questions contain the keys to mastery. Let me show you why. First, am I surrendering to instruction? Allow yourself to be molded by the insights of people who have come before you without any preconceived notions. If you go into an endeavor with a big ego and scoff at best practices, you'll never grow. Leonard says, the courage of a master is measured by his or her willingness to surrender to a teacher. Even those who will someday overthrow conventional ways of thinking or doing need to know what it is they are overthrowing. Find a teacher worth surrendering to, either an instructor who can give you lessons one-on-one and provide real-time feedback, or a book you can use as your definitive guide. When searching for a teacher, ask for recommendations, and then interview a handful of instructors or read a dozen instructional books. During your search, keep the following questions in mind. Number 1, did this instructor learn from a master? An instructor's lineage matters. Number 2, do they have an impressive resume of successful students? An instructor may have reached the top of their field, but if they fail to teach others to do the same, they're not worth your time. Number 3, are they kind, empathetic, and patient with beginners? You need to know that an instructor will not abandon you when you take a long time to grasp a concept. Number 4, are they likely to provide a balance of positive and negative feedback? UCLA coach John Wooden, perhaps the greatest basketball coach of all time, consistently reflected on how he delivered praise and criticism and strived to maintain a 50-50 ratio of reinforcement and correction. Once you find a teacher who provides satisfactory answers to those 4 questions, or a book that provides satisfactory answers to the first 2 questions, put your ego in the closet, forget what you think you know, and adopt the identity of a learner. Leonard says, for the master, surrender means there are no experts. There are only learners. The next question you need to ask yourself at the end of each week to stay on the path to mastery is, am I practicing intentionally? The more vividly you can imagine yourself executing movements in your next practice, the more enthusiasm you'll have to practice. Clarity creates energy. Once in practice, be fully present and conscious of your movements. As Arnold Schwarzenegger once said, pumping a weight one time with full consciousness is worth 10 that lack mental awareness. The next question to ask yourself at the end of each week, do I love to practice? When you love to practice, you don't need to worry about consistency because you will always make time to practice. Missing an opportunity to practice is like missing a meal. In the words of a master painter in the book who paints in her studio 4 hours a day, 5 days a week, no matter what, it's the routine itself that feeds me. If I didn't do it, I'd be betraying the essential me. Hall of Fame basketball player Larry Bird was the quintessential master. After his Celtics won the NBA championship in June 1986, reporters asked Bird what he planned to do next. Bird said, "I've still got things I need to work on, so I'll start my off-season training next week, 2 hours a day with at least 100 free throws every day." Bird liked winning, but he loved practice. Fall in love with your practice by starting each practice going through the motions until you no longer feel tired or restless from the day. Then settle in and find a trance-like rhythm where you can lose track of time and the number of repetitions. Get to a point near the end of practice where you wish you could keep practicing all day, but you choose to stop and look forward to the next practice. Now, the final question to ask yourself at the end of each week, am I exploring the edge? You explore the edge in your craft by seeking out resistance and negotiating with it. A manager in pursuit of mastery will explore the edge by looking for signs of discontentment and actively seeking out difficult conversations to understand the source of their discontentment. A master ultramarathon runner will explore the edge by finding a pace that feels slightly difficult and get in a heart rate zone they can sustain for hours, but that gives them the best chance to run a personal best time. Just like that ultramarathon runner, seek to stay in a slightly difficult zone. Getting into that zone may require volunteering for performances, routinely taking tests, or putting yourself in competitions where you feel pressure. You'll know you're exploring the edge if for every 2 steps forward, you take 1 step back. Loss and reflection are essential to mastery. In the end, if you can answer yes to the 4 mastery questions at the end of each week, you will remain on the path to mastery and avoid the unsatisfying path of the dabbler, the obsessive, and the hacker. When you experience a plateau on the path to mastery, stay patient by falling in love with the day-to-day process. As George Leonard says, perhaps we'll never know how much a human being can truly achieve until we realize that the ultimate reward is not a gold medal, but the path itself. That was the core message that I gathered from Mastery by George Leonard.